There was a time when football was filled with odd competitions, tournaments that promised glory, chaos, and the occasional punch-up. Before the Champions League became the be-all and end-all, and tournaments were branded with sponsors, the football calendar was actually pretty wild. Welcome to Pixel Football, where today we're diving into 10 forgotten football tournaments, competitions that once mattered and then vanished. Some were experiments, some were stopgaps, some were just plain weird. But each one helps tell a story of football's messy and glorious past. So first up is the British Home Championship, which was the oldest international tournament in the world, annually pitting England, Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland, previously Ireland, against each other, and it ran for a century. The origins of the tournament stem from the first ever international match recognised by FIFA between England and Scotland in November 1872. Following that game, a schedule of international matches between the home nations gradually developed, and in 1884, all of the countries participated for the first time together. It became a true fixture in the British football calendar and helped fuel some of the fiercest rivalries in sport, particularly between England and Scotland, who were the strongest teams throughout. However, its popularity waned post-World War II, particularly after the rise of competitions like the World Cup and the European Championships, on top of issues such as fixture congestion, declining attendances, and rising hooliganism at matches, which led to its cancellation in 1984, when both England and Scotland withdrew from the competition. So the British Home Championship trophy remains property of the Irish FA, as Northern Ireland were the last ever champions. And despite its demise, the tournament is fondly remembered for its historic intensity and the sense of national pride it stirred in each of the four home nations. So another trailblazing tournament was the Mitropa Cup. Before the Champions League and even the European Cup, this competition was one of the very first major international club competitions in Europe. Founded in 1927, it was designed to showcase the best club teams in Central Europe, featuring clubs from Austria, Hungary, Czechoslovakia and Yugoslavia, with sides from Italy and other nations joining in later years, and promoted cross-border football to showcase the region's immense talent and footballing strength at the time. Matches often drew massive crowds and very much laid the groundwork of European competition as we know it today. But the competition's prominence waned and declined as the outbreak of World War II started, and though it was revived afterwards, it never quite regained its status. With the launch of UEFA's European Cup in the 1950s, the Mitropa Cup became increasingly irrelevant as the decades passed by. The tournament was finally disbanded in 1992, but certainly helped shape the idea of continental club football. Next up is the Fairs Cup, another European competition that ran from 1955 to 1971. It was originally created to promote international trade fairs, with matches played between teams from cities hosting those events. Over time, these exhibition games evolved into a full tournament. At first, league positions didn't matter. Entry was based purely on whether your city held a trade fair. There was also a one city, one team rule, which led to some odd setups. For example, London fielded a team called London 11, made up of players from several different clubs from the capital, and often included some giants of English football. Like here's an example team from 1958 who drew 2-2 versus a Barcelona 11. A group included legends like Jimmy Greaves, Johnny Haynes and Danny Blanchflower. But the Fairs Cup wasn't run by UEFA, but by its own committee, which included some FIFA officials. Eventually, in 1971, UEFA decided the competition had grown too big to sit outside of its own control and replaced it with the UEFA Cup. As the UEFA General Secretary put it at the time, the competition was very successful, but by the time came when such a major tournament should be governed by UEFA itself. and that turf war between FIFA and UEFA is still bubbling today. Just look at the tensions around the new FIFA Club World Cup, where it looks like another attempted power and money grab, this time by FIFA, as it looks to grow this rebooted tournament. The Fairs Cup actually links to another now defunct tournament, the Anglo-Italian Cup. This bizarre and often chaotic tournament had several iterations, running on and off between 1970 and 1996, and was contested by clubs solely from England and Italy. The story starts in 1969, when Swindon Town, a third-tier team, beat Arsenal in the League Cup final, but were restricted from playing in the following year's Fairs Cup due to their low league status. As a consolation, a two-legged tie between them and Coppa Italia winners Roma was arranged. Swindon won, fans loved it, and from that success, the first Anglo-Italian Cup was established in 1970. The format was, well, creative. 6 English and 6 Italian teams were split into mixed groups, earning points not just for wins and draws, but also for every goal scored. The best English and Italian teams would meet in the final. And that first final was between Swindon and Napoli, with Swindon going 3-0 up. But then the chaos broke out. Fans rioted and the match had to be abandoned, and Swindon were declared winners. And that kind of madness defined the Anglo-Italian Cup, a tournament known for its punch-ups, pitch invasions, and culture clashes. It gained a cult following, even if it rarely made much football sense. It was briefly revived in 1976 as a semi-pro tournament, featuring the likes of Bath City, Wycombe Wanderers, Wimbledon and Udinese, before returning one last time in 1992, this time as for second-tier professional clubs from England's First Division and Serie B. It ran for 4 more seasons, with Italian sides winning 3 of them, before finally ending again in 1996. Next up is the Intertoto Cup, a summer competition designed for clubs who didn't qualify for Europe through their league, but still fancied a backdoor route into the UEFA Cup. Played in the off-season, it often featured reserve squads and lacked any kind of glamour. Its confusing format also didn't help, and most clubs saw it more as a nuisance than an opportunity. To take part, clubs had to apply at the end of the season, but entry wasn't guaranteed on league position alone. If higher placed teams didn't apply, then spots would go to those further down the table who did. After its 1995 relaunch, the competition became particularly unpopular in England. Initially offered 3 places, all Premier League clubs rejected them. UEFA responded by threatening bans from European competitions, so 3 clubs eventually entered, but fielded weakened teams. Tottenham and Wimbledon were even punished for not taking it seriously, and England lost a UEFA Cup spot in 1995-96 as a result. The tournament limped on for a few more years, but with little enthusiasm. By 2008, UEFA finally scrapped it, streamlining the qualification process for European competitions. Onto a well-regarded European competition in the Cup Winners' Cup, which ran for nearly 4 decades and was contested by domestic cup champions across Europe. It provided a path to continental glory for those clubs who may not have won their league, but excelled in knockout competition, and past winners included Barcelona, Manchester United and Chelsea. My memory of this competition was Arsenal winning in 93-94 against a really strong Parma side, and then nearly retaining it the following season until Naeem famously scored from the halfway line for Real Zaragoza. However, with the Champions League expanding and the UEFA Cup, now the Europa League, growing in prestige, the Cup Winners' Cup was merged into the UEFA Cup in 1999. Next is the Full Members' Cup, a short-lived domestic competition set up in the wake of the Hazel disaster, which saw English clubs banned from European football. In need of something to fill the gap, the Football League hastily introduced this cup for teams in the top 2 divisions. The name refers to those that were full members of the Football League with full voting rights. Lower division teams, the associate members, had their own separate competition, now known as the EFL Trophy. It was more of a stopgap than a serious piece of silverware, but it did have its moments. The most famous came in 1990 when Chelsea beat Man City 5-4 in an entertaining game at Wembley. However, the competition faded fast. By 1992, the Premier League had arrived, English clubs were back in Europe, and the Full Members' Cup was disbanded. Still, it's a curious footnote from a strange and turbulent era for English football. Switching to international football is Le Tournoi, a one-off 4-team mini-tournament hosted by France in 1997 as a warm-up for the '98 World Cup. It featured France, Italy, Brazil and England, with each team playing each other just once in a round-robin format. The team with the most points took the trophy. Le Tournoi is remembered for two things. First, England actually won it, which never really happens. They beat Italy and France, and despite losing to Brazil in their final game, still came out on top. So yes, silverware for England, even though it was technically meaningless. But most of all, it's remembered for that free kick by Roberto Carlos, the banana shot that defied physics. The tournoi was never repeated, but it still holds a strange kind of retro cult status. Another invitational tournament is the Kirin Cup, a long-running competition hosted by Japan and backed by the Kirin Brewing Company. First held in 1978 and originally known as the Japan Cup, it featured a mix of national teams and club sides. Though never seen as a major competition, it's been a useful opportunity for Japan to test themselves against international opposition. The tournament has never officially disbanded, but it has faded in recent years, with editions held only sporadically. That said, it was never strictly an annual event, so don't be surprised if it pops up again in the future. Finally, we have the Peace Cup, a pre-season invitational tournament for club teams, held every 2 years by the Sun Moon Peace Football Foundation, an organisation linked to the South Korean Unification Church. Its aim was to promote global harmony through football. Originally intended to be called the Sun Moon Peace Cup, named after the church founder, the organisers dropped the religious reference after criticism and rebranded it as the World Peace King Cup. But even that hit the roadblocks, as the Asian Football Confederation warned that only FIFA could use the term world, and King was reserved for competitions hosted by monarchies. The first tournament kicked off in South Korea in 2003, but never gained widespread recognition from fans. But like the Kirin Cup, it gave Asian audiences a rare chance to see top European clubs live. A women's version, the Peace Queen Cup, launched in 2006 with national sides. But following the death of its original church founder in 2012, the Peace Cup quietly ended this quirky, idealistic footnote in football history. And that's our whistle-stop tour of some of football's forgotten tournaments. Some were noble ideas, others utter madness. A few were stepping stones to something bigger, whilst others just simply fizzled out. They might not have the legacy of some of the bigger competitions, but they tell a different story, one of experimentation, politics, and occasional absolute brilliance. Let me know in the comments which tournament you remember, or if there's any we've missed. And if you like the video, give this video a like and subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you next time.